Yep. Okay. Ready to go, guys. Okay, call tonight's meeting to order for October 19th. Mr. Metz, when you're ready, please call the roll.
Sam Cornwall. Roger Daniel.
Here.
Greg Emmerich.
Here.
John Langhorn.
Here.
Paul Nenny. Todd Moore.
Here.
Will Parsons. You have quorum.
Okay, thank you. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to our first public hearing this evening. And this is from applicant Philip Brandon. Mr. Metz, I'll let you go through the record.
Thank you. So tonight before us, we have a request by applicant Brandon on behalf of Brandon Homes for approval of a final plat section 1 for the approved plan development to begin the construction for the first 4 of the 20 single-family homes at 2701 Central Avenue that was previously approved on September 13th, 2023. Currently, the project is zoned R3. It will be changing tomorrow, actually, to plan development. It's been 30 days since City Council's approved it. Just to kind of cover what we're going over and what we're actually approving, just to clear up any confusion. Whenever there is a plan development that is approved, at the same time, a final plat comes in at the same time, as there was work between the city, the applicant, our legal department on working on the contract. The final plat wasn't ready at that point in time, so they've now submitted section 1 of the final plat to accompany the final development plan and have the section 1 of the final plat approved. So final development plan is zoning of the building, which is intangible things like building material, location, height, etc., whereas a final plat is more of your tangible structure, like items that you can actually touch, which is, it covers your boundary survey, your legal description, it covers roadways, public right-of-way, utilities, easements, etc. So usually when a final development plan has been approved, such as other previous ones that we've done in the past, they've always been accompanied by a final development plat, or final plat along with the final development plan. So tonight is just catching up with some of the plats. So I wanted to include 2 sections which I thought were pertinent to this. So in the City of Middletown Development Code, under a submission of a final plat, there is a process that is laid out for the Development Code Administrator, which is me, going through the process. Planning Commission doesn't actually step in until step 7, but everything before step 7 I have to do on my own. But I wanted to include step 5, submission of a final plat. In cases where the applicant proposes to develop a subdivision in phases, the final plat shall be submitted for each individual phase, meaning this is section 1. The applicant will have to come back for section 2, which is the remainder of the 16 homes. If a preliminary plat has been previously approved, which it was, the final plat shall have incorporated all changes in the preliminary plat approval. This application does not include any changes. It is exactly as it was previously. The next application will include changes. Step 7, review and decision on the final plat by the Planning Commission. Approval of the final plat by Planning Commission shall not be an acceptance by the public of the offer of dedication of any street, public improvement, or other public ways or open space on the final plat unless they are accepted by City Council in the form of an adoption of a motion. Adoption of a motion is just the process that City Council does to approve it. So what you do tonight, you're basically recommending an approval to City Council, who will then approve it. Step F, no final plat shall be recorded until all areas offered for parks, open space, or public right-of-ways have been accepted by City Council. Again, what you do tonight is a recommendation to City Council for them to make the ultimate decision. This is the preliminary plat. It's a very basic and colored version. that was approved on September 13th, 2023, including the proposed road, the open space and detention, and then all the different lots as you see. I wanted to include that because this is actually what a preliminary plat looks like, and it's a lot harder to kind of tell. This includes the topography, this includes the roadways, the utilities, everything else. This was also supplied during the September 13th, 2023 approval of the final development plan. But as it was a preliminary plat, not the final plat, we're coming back for the final plat. The applicant would like to, during the contract, they're taking over ownership of the first 4 lots. So that is what they're platting, which will be these 4 right here. And you'll see that on the next slide. It is kind of crooked. So it is these 4 lots here. But just for clarity's sake, I kind of screenshotted it like this. So here's Central Avenue running east to west. In the previous slides, it was going north to south. So these are the 4 lots that they are wanting to section off and plat first. And I believe they are wanting to start construction on either lot 3 or lot 4 and have the foundation laid and ready for construction over the winter. They want to have the foundation done before December or during December. This, so City Engineering Department reviewed the final plat. They found no issues with it, and they stated that the construction plan needs to comply with the engineering manual of design, which is pretty standard response. But they did state that there was no changes from the preliminary plat to the final plat, and that they would approve final plat section 1 to City Council. So the review criteria for a final plat, this is going to sound familiar because it's similar to the review criteria for the final development plan. In order to approve a major subdivision, the Planning Commission and City Council, as appropriate, shall determine the following: that the major subdivision complies with the applicable provisions of this code, that the major subdivision does not conflict with other regulations, plans, or policies of the city, that applicable review agencies have no objections that cannot be resolved by the applicant, and that the final plat and construction drawings conform to the approved preliminary plat if submitted and approved. That's my staff report. If you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. This is a public hearing. We will open the public hearing now. I should state for the record that we have no one to speak in favor or opposition to the proposed final plat. So I will close the public hearing and we'll ask for staff recommendation.
I recommend approval. Staff recommendation, sorry about that. They haven't hired me yet.
We have a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Yeah, okay.
We'll go with Todd Moore,
Yes.
John Langhorn,
Yes.
Greg Emmerich, and Roger Daniel.
Yes,
Okay. We'll now move to our second case this evening, second public hearing. This is a request by Todd Duplain for final plat at State Route 122 and Union Road. And Mr. Metz, I'll let you give an overview of the case.
Thank you. So tonight we have a request by applicant Todd Duplain on behalf of the property owners of Fisher Family Foundation in the city of Middletown for approval of a final plat to allow to begin construction of the private roads and allow for the utility easements of the event center, Class A retail and office space, hotels, restaurants, and a variety of other residential products to begin State Route 122 and Union Road. The project will still need final development plan approval by Planning Commission. Here's the subject property. Zone BCH, but it actually will be zoned plan development soon. So initially, I'll just actually go back over this again. So in cases where the applicant proposes to develop in the subdivision phases, the final plat will be submitted in each individual phase. This doesn't apply here. They're wanting to plat the whole entire site now, develop the roadways, the utility easements, develop the utilities actually, including all the easements, as soon as possible. Review and decision of the final plat by the Planning Commission. Approval of the final plat by the Planning Commission shall not be an acceptance by the public of the offer of dedication of any street, public improvement, or other public ways or open space on the final plat unless they are accepted by City Council in the form of adoption of a motion. And no final plat shall be recorded until all areas offered for parks, open space, or public right-of-ways have been accepted by City Council. So this was initially done back in March. The preliminary development plan was approved by Planning Commission in March. And if you remember, they submitted two different plans. The first one included this portion right here in the actual plan. And then after, there was a little bit of public outreach where they were asking the development to push back. They did push back. So this lot has been partitioned off from the preliminary plat and then dedicated back to, or connected to this lot here, which Fisher owns. They do not plan on developing it. So the changes in the preliminary plat to the final plat here are quite a bit. It is the roadway, it is the utility easements, it is legal description, but primarily the largest difference is the lot split that was done here. This parcel right here that you can kind of see in this dotted line area was split off from the actual plan and then connected to this parcel down here. So as previously mentioned, the reason that the development would like to start with the final plat prior to the final development plan is solely a financing issue. The developer would need to have the ownership of the property and have it platted off to themselves and owned so they can, in a better opportunity to get funding for the development. As you see here, final plat is not different than the preliminary development plan. This is the site plan that was provided. Still shows Atrium Boulevard, still shows Middle Drive, and Event Promenade. You still have the public road starting off, and then it transfers back into private roads. Go back and forth for a second so you guys can get an idea. And the portion that was partitioned off, this is the second site plan that was submitted. This land right here was partitioned off and is not planning to be developed. It's no longer part of the planned development. So when they come forward for the plan, the final development plan, that part will not be included.
We didn't lose anything.
No, nothing was lost, no. The homes that were originally here were these, and they just moved them over. Again, I shared this with our Public Works Director. He reviewed the final plat, said it met all the needs that the Public Works Department would need, and that the construction plans need to comply with the engineering manual of design. If this project received approval, just like the last one, he will be taking them to a future City Council meeting to have them reviewed and approved by City Council. So the review criteria for a final plat: in order to approve a major subdivision, the Planning Commission and City Council, as appropriate, shall determine the following: that the major subdivision complies with the applicable provisions of the code, that the major subdivision does not conflict with other regulations, plans, or policies of the city, that applicable review agencies have no objections that cannot be resolved by the applicant, and that the final plat and construction drawings conform to the approved preliminary plat if submitted and approved. That ends my staff report. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions?
And just a statement, it's probably not this developer's first rodeo, so he probably knew that he'd have to have ownership of this land before he could get financing, so I think it's kind of silly that they come at this point and say we have to do something right away. Not going to change how I vote for it, but just pointing out. The developer should be smarter than that. And I'm sure he is.
Any other comments? This is a public hearing. I'll now open the public hearing. Let the record reflect that there's no one here to speak in opposition or in favor of the final plat. So I will close the public hearing and we'll ask for staff recommendation.
Staff recommends approval of the final plat to be construction of the private roads and allow for the utility easements for the event center, Class A retail and office, hotels, restaurants, and a variety of residential products at the southeast intersection of State Route 122 and Union Road. The Planning Commission will still need to approve the final development plan, meaning even if you approve the final plat, they will still have to come back and give you a final detailed plan of what will be built there.
Well, we've heard staff recommendation. Do we have a motion for approval?
I motion approve.
Okay.
Roger Daniel,
Yes.
Greg Emmert,
Yes.
John Langhorn,
Yes.
Todd Moore.
Yes.
For newer old business, we have one application for next month, possibly a second one. Both of them are conditional use applications. I received them in the last week. One's still an incomplete application, but essentially it's just conditional use approval for, one of them is automotive sales and leasing business off of Briel, which is where the old Cash Max was. Should sound familiar. You guys reviewed and denied a previous application, I believe back in May of this year for it, and then it's a different applicant coming forth. And then another one is a church.
Did we deny it for the size?
Yep, I think it's like,
It'd be 5 acres or something like that, or?
automotive sales and leasing needs to be 4 acres. And this property, I think, is less than a quarter of an acre. It's the old Cash Max. I mean, it can probably fit 10 cars, 12 cars on it, so.
I've seen a sign there today.
Never seen a lot that has the number of cars that should be on it.
Right.
You know, they pack them into every corner, just little grass, asphalt, or whatever they can do.
And then it becomes a safety issue.
So somebody's bringing before us the thing we voted down in May?
Yes, but since it's a different applicant, they're permitted to do that. If it was the same applicant, they'd have to wait 365 days before resubmitting. It's a gentleman out of Cincinnati. We did. I told him that before he even applied.
Cash a check and we'll tell them no again.
Okay. I do remember that one, yeah. Well, that brings us to adjournment. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Sorry, guys. I kept
James,
you
can you bring us some more fees that we can approve to be waived?
for other
I just want to
commissions.
aggravate some people in the